I'm Aryeh Schwartz, along with my co-host, Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr show, where it's all about the W. This episode, we're talking fever and a few other fun topics. If you like our show, consider joining our Patreon community. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. This episode, like I said, we're covering the Indiana Fever. The trade deadline was today, and a few things happened today. And obviously, we can't go an episode with Rachel Galligan and not talk about Liz Cambage. Rachel, glad to have you. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be back. I've missed everybody from All-Star Weekend and getting a chance to catch up. I apologize not being able to be there. The FOMO was real, but looked like you guys all had a good time, so I'm happy.
Yeah, but you'll never be forgiven.
Fine.
All right, so let's hop into this. Indiana Fever let's be real. This has been a team that we've talked about online a lot, but really, besides that really hot start in the beginning of the season, really hot comparatively, at one point they were the number 2 team in the league. They've really simmered down, but picked up a little bit of steam recently. Most recently, they had a big comeback, a 22-point, 21-point comeback against the Minnesota Lynx, largest comeback in Indiana Fever history. But before we get into that, they're on a 2-game win streak right now, Rachel. And talk to me about what you're thinking when you see that the Indiana Fever are able to pull this through a little bit recently.
I'm just really fascinated with the Fever. This is a team that, because of proximity of kind of where I'm from, I've been able to follow really closely for many years now. And so I love following the Fever. I love kind of just the tradition that's taken place there. And especially last year to where they are now, I think we've seen a ton of growth. I think what's happening right now with this roster, Tierra McCowan, Erica Wheeler, coming off that All-Star game MVP nod, and Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, there's a lot of excitement on this roster. But at the same time, this is a team that when they struggle, they struggle, and then when they're clicking, they can click. And someone posed the question after the Fever's recent win over Minnesota, is this the most dangerous team in the league? And that's been a really fun topic to just kind of talk about throughout the course of the season so far. And, I initially had dubbed that to the Liberty. And I do think that the Fever are a dangerous team. Both teams are streaky teams, just as with anything, you hit a stride, you get a little bit of momentum. A team can be dangerous, especially when you've got the offensive firepower that is on this Fever roster when they are, scoring the way they can score the basketball. They're right in the middle of the league in terms of their ability to score. I just think when it comes down to the Fever and the Liberty, it's their ability to defend. So, they're riding a wave right now. And I think it's part of that wave. I wanted to make note of this, probably, I don't know how much it has to do with it, but, Erica Wheeler gets that MVP nod at the All-Star game. And she made a comment, I forget which platform it was on or what it was on, but she said, this is about all of us. This is about, the Indiana Fever. And this is about us riding this wave and getting some confidence and getting some momentum. And they've done that, just straight out of the All-Star break into this. They were able to beat Atlanta by 2 points and then turn around. And with that massive comeback over Minnesota, I mean, that was just absolutely, in my opinion, this might be a bold statement, but one of the most exciting games to watch so far this season because of just how they were able to do it. So I think, we're seeing a Fever team that's confident right now. They're probably clicking a little bit more. They've still got some youth to it. And that's kind of what you hope to see coming out of the All-Star break. We are well past that midway point of the season, and teams, you are hoping that a team like this is clicking. So as much as anyone else out there, they have to be considered one of the most dangerous teams in the league.
I got to. Look, let's run down a few things. Something that's interesting for me for the Fever is if you look at their team stats between them and the opponents, the stats are basically identical. I mean, if for me, if you're talking about stats and you're within like a 1.5 point difference, then it's the same thing to me because that can change in a moment. But something that really stood out, talking about defense like you were, opponents are averaging 79.1 points a game against the Fever. You talk about the Liberty, opponents are averaging 83.2. And that's kind of, I mean, obviously, look, all these stats can be skewed by a crazy game or a really bad game or whatever. But that says a lot to me because with both these teams, I think you have a lot of question marks all over, like, who is this team? What are they going to do? And that's part of the element of being dangerous, right? They might surprise you one day. If you sleep on them, they'll surprise you. Before we started recording, Rachel, we were talking about, New York, Fever, which one is more intimidating as far as a dangerous team. And I keep going back and forth, so I want your take on this. Do you have to have that star power? Because, like, for me with the Liberty and the Fever, there hasn't been a dominant team in this league this season that you can see them go up against and really judge them in my mind. But for me, I give the edge to New York, even though their defense hasn't been performing as well, but strictly because of that star power of Tina Charles.
I can see your point there. If we're talking about star power, these are two very different looking rosters. The Fever, a little bit of youth, but you've got not necessarily star power, even though she was an all-star. I think, in my opinion, you have two cogs of this Fever team which are pivotal, and that's Candice Dupree and Natalie Achonwa, who bring a level of poise, obviously a level of experience, especially with Dupree, who can really help guide this roster and help guide this team. And we've seen that for the last two seasons, out of those two especially. You may not have a Tina Charles-ish player on that roster, but you have some potential players that down the road we're talking about in the same light as a player like Tina Charles. I mean, we just don't know what can happen with Kelsey Mitchell's career at this point. Erica Wheeler right now is one of the biggest names in the WNBA. Obviously,
it's crazy how quick that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I just think they're too. It's hard to compare because their rosters are designed very differently in terms of the star power that you're referring to. But I think what I love about the Fever is they work. When they work, they work, and they have a lot of pieces that at this point, which timing is everything, appear to be working really well. And especially on the back of Erica Wheeler coming off what she did, riding that momentum, that confidence. That's what I like so much about this team. And I think we've seen a lot of players who've been able to really accept that role, accept being able to play with a high volume shooter like a Kelsey Mitchell. I just think they're clicking really well right now. And now that could change on Thursday when they play again, because these are two streaky teams, and they're going to be streaky probably for the duration of the season.
Oh yeah, and probably a little bit into next year too.
Right, exactly.
All right. I'm going to make this really hard on you. You're in a 5-game series for the WNBA Finals. Which roster would you pick? You can choose the Fever roster, or you can choose the Liberty roster. Which one are you picking?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a really hard one for me, and you're really putting me on the spot here.
And we're not talking coaching. I know people are going to be like, oh, coaching. We're not talking coaching, strictly roster. You get to be the coach.
My initial instinct is sitting here wanting to say Fever because I just think by nature I have spent more time with them. I'm probably a little more apt to see this roster and understand it probably a little bit better than I understand the Liberty roster. But if we're just talking about this season in particular, I'm a really big fan of the Liberty's lineup. I mean, obviously I think the difference is Tina Charles. I mean, I'm a huge Tina Charles fan. I love what Asia Durr has the capabilities of doing as a young rookie in this league, her ability to score the ball. I think she's going to have a great career. And honestly, I love what Kia Nurse has done. She's having a fantastic year. Zowie B, I've watched for many years, and she's come out, especially early in the season on a tear. So I think for me, I'm going with Liberty. What about you?
Okay, phew, because I was going to piss off a lot of New York people. And I'm going Fever just because for me, I'm going to say this. I feel like a team could be more easily lulled to sleep or lulled to a false sense of security against the Fever because they don't have that star power. So I'm going wild card. I'm going Indiana Fever in a 5-game series between the two. Yeah.
And that is not because I don't like the Fever roster, just for the record.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, look, I'm putting a gun to your head and saying, "Pick Rachel, pick."
I mean, I love Candice Dupree. I love Natalie Achanwa. I think Erica Wheeler. I mean, that's a really tough question. Props to you for stumping me. Honestly, that was
That's what I do. Okay, so let's go back to this game. How in God's green earth, or not God's if you don't believe in God, how on earth did the Indiana Fever pull off that comeback? And there was some household names, or not household names, but there was some well-known names that helped that you might not have expected, i.e. Kelsey Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was, and Kelsey Mitchell, with everything going on with Wheeler coming out of the lineup, there's been some changes from that standpoint, but that was just incredible to be down by 21, and then you come out a half and you just literally, it's like they ignited.
What was that? What was that streak? It was like a 42 to 12 or something streak.
At one point it was 41 to 12, and it might have gotten up to 43. But I honestly, in my 32 years, yes, I'm showing my age, I've never seen a run like that. I mean, unless it was like YMCA, like 5th grade basketball,
Here's the question though, and I'm hitting you with a hard one today. About 3 years ago, or 3 seasons ago, so not last season, but the season before, Minnesota Lynx went on a historic, it was like 30-something to 0 run, or a 40-something to 0 run against the Indiana Fever in Indiana. It was the largest streak. I mean, I think they went like a quarter and a half before letting the Fever score. Which is more impressive, to just go on an outright tear where you drop 30 and the other team, to score 30 more than the other team when it's a back and forth game, or to score 30 more than the other team when you're down 20?
I have to say the second part of that. I mean, you're down 21, and you've already like the ebbs and flows of a game, as a player, kind of, they're naturally like, like you're already kind of feeling yourself. By the time you're at halftime, like you either know like this is my game, I'm not feeling it, I'm playing well. You kind of have a vibe as to how this is going. That's obviously not to say that you can't turn it around the second half and make adjustments, and things can happen at any point. That can happen, but to be down 21 to a team like Minnesota, we're not talking about like Sister Mary the Poor here. We're talking about Minnesota Lynx, and come out and do what they did, to me, is more impressive, as opposed to sitting here and saying, oh, a team, we rolled the balls out and, they just weren't ready to go. And they jumped out to a 30-0 run. I mean, not that that's not impressive. It definitely is. But to be down 21 and to come out and do what they did that second half, I mean, I honestly don't think I've ever seen anything like that. And that was pretty neat. And the thing that was fascinating about it, they did it without Erica Wheeler and without Candice Dupree. Erica Wheeler ended up playing 8 minutes that game. Candice Dupree played, I think it was about 11. So you had a rotation of 5 or 6 that were really clicking on all cylinders, and you got to credit Pokey Chapman. Like, you have to ride that wave if it's working, and if that unit is getting it done, you got to ride with that unit. And that was kind of spearheaded by Kelsey Mitchell, who, when Kelsey Mitchell's on, she's on, and that was a game, we know Kelsey Mitchell's a high volume shooter when she has that green light to do that, finishing 7 for 16 at 44%. That's a really good night for Kelsey Mitchell. She led all scorers with 20 points, and she really was kind of the cog in that run. But, Pokey Chapman made the right call, obviously, in terms of just letting that unit do what they did, and it really paid off for him.
Yeah, something that I do want to touch on. You have Kelsey Mitchell, I believe the number 2 pick from last year, one of the top point guards, one of the top. She didn't. Correct me if I'm wrong. She's the number 2 all time on NCAA scoring. Is that right? She's something like that.
I'm in WNBA mode, Aryeh. I got it.
Okay, sorry. My if I remember correctly, she's number 2. She came close at the Ohio State for breaking Kelsey Plum's record. The Kelseys just ruled us. Fine, whatever, we get it. My point is more so, she was a big name coming in, and she's kind of simmered down around the hype around her this year. And this year, it's really been the Erica Wheeler show. I mean, I'm in Erica Wheeler's camp. I've been talking all season about how she's been blowing me away, how she's been playing really well. I mean, heck, She has the most. She's got the most points on the team. She's one of the higher percentages. I mean, everything she's doing is just amazing. And obviously, I'm comparing her and Kelsey Mitchell, so it's not exactly a fair comparison because they have slightly different styles and whatnot. And to be fair, well, Rachel and I, we were going over the stats comparing Kelsey Mitchell and Erica Wheeler, and we were just like, wow, Erica Wheeler's playing a lot better. Really, the only thing that she's lagging in is the turnovers, where 74-29. Erica Wheeler has way too many of those. But I want to talk about this because Erica Wheeler, like you said, got a lot of attention at the All-Star game, comes out in the next game, plays pretty well. She's been playing really well this whole season, and then we barely see her at all against the Lynx.
Yeah, and I think a player like Erica Wheeler gets that. That she's playing alongside a player like Kelsey Mitchell, who can be a deadly player when she's playing well. She can take shots and she can make shots that nobody else can make. And so Kelsey Mitchell, when she's going, it's hard for me to compare anyone else who can go at the rate that she can go. And Erica Wheeler knows that, and this has got to be, I think if you're a competitor, if you are on this Fever roster and you see that, you're like, hey, and I'm not trying to speak for Erica Wheeler, but I've got to believe that this is the character that she has of like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. This is about us getting this win. This is about us. This is about our team. This is about whatever we have to do to come get this win. And if that means that my role, these next 20 minutes is to do this, then that's what I'm going to do. And I think that when you have that type of leadership, and that type of locker room environment that's required on a team, as opposed to dealing with egos and people wanting minutes and spotlight and wanting to be the hero. Those types of things can be a major cancer in a locker room. But you have someone like Erica Wheeler, who just based on her comments after the All-Star MVP nod, I would assume she is that way. That probably didn't faze her one bit because she knows who she's playing with alongside Kelsey Mitchell. And the same thing with Kelsey Mitchell. You like to think that, okay, maybe I lost this spot. Maybe I'm coming off the bench. And there's no competitor, any competitor in the world probably is not going to be a fan of that. But if that's your role for this portion of the season, or if that's your role for, the next few games or whatever it may be, it's about accepting your roles for the betterment of your team. And I don't know how that dynamic is going, but I can look at their last two games and see that it appears to be going well. And again, I think if you have a group of players together who can accept their roles for the betterment of the team, that's when you can really start seeing success. And that's what I see right now with the Fever, at least in these last two games.
So in short, what you're saying is not only Erica Wheeler an amazing player, but what adds that you can't see on the stat sheet is she's a selfless player.
That's what I see. That's absolutely what I see.
All right, cool. I like I'm saying, if we're starting a team, we're taking over a team, I'm making hard calls to the Indiana Fever to try and trade for Wheeler. Real quickly before we move on to trade talk, I do quickly. All right, we know we're talking about Rookie of the Year. We know the two main candidates, Nafis Collier and Enrique Iguodala. I get it, but talk to me, Rachel. We were texting a little bit. Tara McCowan's stats are real. Granted, she didn't get the early season minutes and wasn't producing in the early season, but of recent, she's become a problem. Look, she was a huge element of that win, just in the fact that she was able to hold her own against one of the best bigs in league history, Sylvia Fowles.
Definitely, and I think that Tara McCowan's going to continue. She's averaging 7 points a game. She's rebounding the heck out of the ball. She's averaging close to a double-double, and this is just in her rookie season, playing 20 minutes a game. So,
but add on to that she didn't even play as much in the earlier season. There was times where she was not, she's getting much more minutes now than she was before, and she's still averaging that. That's impressive.
Yeah, her minutes have increased towards the end of June into July. They increased quite a bit. There were a couple games where they dropped, but I think we're gonna be talking about Tara McCowan for a long time, and I think she's gonna be a problem next year. Year 3, major problem. I see her trending really high for the next 3 to 5 years in this league, just because for so many reasons. She's got the intangibles that no one else can have, and she's gaining a ton of confidence with the minute she's getting with this Fever team. And, I think she has to be in conversations because of what she is doing. Now, she's not going to get that award because we know who it's coming down to, but Teaira McCowan is going to be a major, major player in this league for a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hate it, but I do. All right, let's move on. Two teams made a trade today. Today was the trade deadline. You'll probably be listening to us tomorrow. So yesterday was the trade deadline. Truce Plaisance for Anigwe. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, I think, let me speak for you real quickly and for everyone in the league that this was not no one expected a blockbuster trade to happen. This, even though, was not the blockbuster or not the trade that some of us expected. And there were some reports coming out that Dallas had been in discussion with, for doing a trade such like this of getting rid of Plaisance, however you want to do it, even before Agler took over. So this clearly been in the works for a while. This is a player that Curt Miller has been fond of to some extent, if he's been talking about it for that long. What was your initial reaction when the trade happened?
I mean, I think I like said out loud, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean it for both parties. I think it was a great get for Dallas with Anigwe. Their ability to gain a super athletic big, some size. If they're planning on competing down the road, which is what they're doing, they had to get more of that. So this was a good addition for Dallas, and I think for Connecticut. This is a Curt Miller type of player. Plaisance is, in my opinion, I'm a really big fan. I think she's really solid. I think she gives them some size and an ability to stretch the floor. She can knock down the three ball. I think she'll kind of get into that Connecticut system seamlessly. She's got a solid 6 years in this league. This is her 6th year, so I think it's a good get for both teams. Both teams came out on top. We even did a few polls asking kind of who won the trade, and it was crazy. I mean, everyone that I saw, it was pretty neck and neck. So I think it just makes sense. I really like Anigwe to Dallas because I don't know where she fit on this Connecticut roster, especially in the near future. I just don't know. She just kind of got buried on the bench. It's just kind of the dynamic of how this Sun team is built. So there's an opportunity for her in Dallas, and I think there's a really good opportunity for Plaisance in Connecticut, and so it's a win for everybody.
It is a win for everybody. A topic that maybe some people don't want to talk about, but I'm throwing it out there. This is now. I mean, they traded Lexi Brown. She was the number 1 pick last year, and now they're trading Anigwe, who is their number 1 pick this year. They have in the past 3 years, they have one of their first round picks. Is that concerning to you? I know some people have clapped back at us on Twitter saying, yes, but if you go to 2006 and before that, they have like 7 players and blah, blah, blah. I get that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's many things implied. One is, okay, what are you thinking now if you're a first round pick to that team? Because it's definitely got to be in your mind knowing the last 2 were traded. 2, does this mean that you can even ignore question number 1, but question number 2, does this mean in some way, shape, or form that these players didn't live up to why they were drafted or to the expectations of when they were drafted? Yes, honestly, I just want a yes or no, Rachel, on that one.
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
Okay, cool. And the next question I have is kind of, and maybe you have more insight into this, as Curt Miller's, standing in his tower, looking over his chess pieces, as it were. Do you think that this is a team that has the mindset of they are in a championship window currently? Or is this a team that goes, okay, yes, we've been together for a while and we've been growing, but we're still a few away from that real championship window, and we know that window isn't closing for a while?
No, I think this is a team that knows they're in a championship window for at least, in my opinion, this year for sure, next year, and probably the year following. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but it's something that I've been racking my brain about as we've been seeing Curt Miller wheel and deal throughout, off season to season, and even last year with the trade, it's kind of been like, okay, and I'm going to ask him this next time I speak to him, but like, where is your mindset of this championship window, and are the moves you're making to win now, or are they moves to win later?
No,
Yeah,
I think they're going for it. I think they're going for it. And if it's not this year, it's probably a disappointment in Kurt's mind. And same thing with next year. That's the way I see this roster. Kind of the way it looks. I mean, they've got. There's no reason in my mind that Connecticut can't go win this whole thing this year.
yeah.
They have all the tools, they have all the pieces. People sit here and say, well, they're not fully experienced in the finals. Yeah, I think that's kind of a cop out for this year and the makeup of this year. It is very possible that we see Connecticut win this thing this year and years to come.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and look, I will be the first one to jump up, and Meredith was on the pod last week, and we got a lot of flack for basically saying like they need to prove it to us in the playoffs. That is not me giving them an excuse. That's me saying I'm reserving my excitement for how this team is doing and this and that. If they have to show me a little something, I have full confidence that they can get a top 3 seed in the regular season. The question is, can you continue and hold on to that seed and that level of play during the rest of the season? And I don't think anybody's going to call me too crazy for that. Let's move on. Something that caught some headlines, and if you listen to the beginning of the episode, we were going to talk about this. Liz Cambage misses Dallas and then misses the second half. And she has her what should have been her first return to Dallas after the trade. Sold out arena, doesn't play for quote unquote rest. Now, a little bit later, a few days later, they have a game against Washington Mystics. Well, not a game, a half. And she misses again. Now, she wasn't even on the sidelines, my understanding, for that game. What is going on? Because let's be real, it's more than just rest. If she's not on the sidelines, it's more than just rest.
Yeah. I mean, that was the part that kind of sparked my antennas. I mean, let's be real, that half, as interesting as it was, it got very not interesting very quickly. Disinteresting? Whatever. So I'm looking on the sidelines and I'm wondering, where is she? Okay, this is interesting. And then, you see them signing someone. Who'd they sign today? Help me. The 7-day contract.
Yeah, she was on the team last year. I'm blanking on her name right now.
Yeah. So, okay, like not too surprising, but at the same time, I don't have the answers for anyone listening. It's just when I didn't see her on the sideline, and then you see the sign, and the Dallas Wings not playing in that, I could understand for a lot of reasons, that being a game you wanted to rest or whatever it may be. I don't really have any answers. My antennas are up, and I'm just kind of questioning and looking around, and
it was Jamie Naird.
Yes, and wondering what could be going on. Hopefully, it is truly just some rest and everything's good, and that's what's needed. But and hopefully she returns soon, because we all know, in my opinion, the league is that much better with her in it. But I don't really have any comments or answers for everybody, and I know a lot of people rely on me for that. But I'm just kind of curious as to what's going to happen here the next week or so with Liz Cambage.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and honestly, I'm going to throw this out there. I tweeted this the other night. Last year, the Aces missed the playoffs because of the forfeited game in DC. This year, it is completely possible. I mean, it's totally possible also that statistically it's impossible, but for my numbers, it's not, that they missed the playoffs due to this game. I mean, if you're missing Liz and Asia for the near future, I think they said Asia, they could maybe see her back in 2 weeks. I mean, you got a lot of games that you're going to have to tough through without 2 of your best and most important players. And the bigger issue, honestly, besides missing 2 of your best players, is the positions that they play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's your team.
What are you gonna fill the paint with? I mean, I'm sorry, you can't have Carolyn Swords running the whole game. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen.
Well, and I think everything was fine when Asia went out. You can manage that with the play of Jerica Hamby, who has been phenomenal this year. she's fantastic. On any other roster, she arguably a starter, and is starting. But then when you lose them both, I mean, that's your bread and butter. That's where your offense is, and the focal point of your offense is designed around. So you've got to have the guard play really step up. I mean, which we know is possible in terms, with the star power on this Aces team. But you're right. I mean, this is a crucial period of time here. This next week and a half until Wilson comes back. I mean, and who knows? It could take her a minute to get back into it. We don't know that. So this could be a lull for this Aces team if they don't get Liz or Asia back, and they could hit a little bit of a bump here.
Oh, it could get real bad. Real quick, I'm gonna drop in honor. Call my bias, call whatever you want. Simone Augustus is getting her first start of the season. Props to her as they take on the Atlanta Dream, finally back after a long recovery process from a knee injury and a knee surgery. So I wanted to give her a little shout out and props to her before we wrap up this episode. As always, we believe the players of the W and its community deserve the same in-depth analysis and respect that men's sports receive on a daily basis. With that in mind, please consider joining our Patreon community to help support us and the hard work that we do.